Tonight, storm warning, a wet Christmas on the way with severe and intense conditions forecast up and down the east coast. The UN Security Council adopts a resolution calling for large-scale delivery of aid to Gaza. Czech police released dramatic vision of them storming the site of a mass shooting in Prague. Alex Hales and Cameron Bancroft hit out, leading the Sydney Thunder to their first win of the season. And new pipes set to fill the pews with music at one of Sydney's oldest churches. Good evening, Lydia Feng with ABC News. Severe, intense conditions. That's the forecast for Christmas along the eastern seaboard this year, with violent storms expected tomorrow evening and all through the long weekend. Shoppers have taken advantage of today's good weather to squeeze in some last-minute preparations. But if you're planning on having a barbecue in the backyard, it might be a good idea to have a plan B.
A ringing endorsement from the big man himself for Sydney's annual seafood marathon.
So fresh at the fish market, they're still kicking.
Fishmongers are expected to sell 350 tonnes of seafood to about 130,000 people over the 36-hour seafood shopping blitz.
I walked in here at 5 o'clock. People were already here, even though the doors didn't officially open till 5, they were here long before that.
Tiger prawns and Western Australian rock lobsters are in abundance this year, but the challenge is keeping them fresh for the Christmas table.
Bring your esky, bring your cooler bag out here and keep your product, anything that you've purchased, on ice, and as soon as you get home, get it straight in that fridge. While
some were getting Christmas lunch sorted, others were still buying last-minute gifts.
It has to be today. It has to be. Otherwise he gets nothing.
Living on the edge, yeah. But best way to get a little bit of adrenaline rush, you know, best way to live life.
But those hoping to spend Christmas Day outdoors may need a backup plan. A severe storm is likely to wreak havoc with people's holidays across New South Wales.
Might just be Christmas Day in the rain on the beach.
On the beach, yeah, with an umbrella.
Yeah.
Forecasters say the weather system is ramping up, with the far north of the state already feeling the impact, and it's expected to hit Sydney in the afternoon on Christmas Eve.
The risk of storms into coastal spots like Sydney on Sunday, and then Monday, Christmas Day, storms all down that eastern side of the country, likely to continue into Tuesday.
The SES is warning there is a risk of flash flooding up and down the coast, including in Sydney. They're urging people to clear their gutters, move their cars under cover, and above all, do not drive through floodwaters. And make sure the feast is ready to go. Leah Harris, ABC News, Sydney.
On the other side of the continent, hot and dry conditions again have kept WA fire crews on high alert as they deal with several bushfires across the state. Several properties have been lost or badly damaged in fires on the outskirts of Perth.
From a backyard to charred bushland, the fire came within metres of Ben Van Viersen's property in North Dandalup, south of Perth.
That had it taken, could have lost the tank.
He wasn't there, but his home was saved after a tradie turned on the sprinklers.
Scared and relieved at the same time because I got away with it, and hopefully it's 3 or 4 years before it can ever happen again. And I won't let it happen again because I'm going to put a big break around the house.
The bushfire tore through the countryside at more than 2 kilometres an hour at its peak on Friday. 2 unoccupied properties on a mine site were destroyed and many other homes were threatened.
Only a couple of metres away from those properties, and again it's the great work of the crews and perhaps a little bit of preparedness from those homeowners, as well as a little bit of luck that's probably saved the day.
Shane Rowley's family rushed in to save horses on nearby farms.
You do what you have to do. It's as simple as that. They're no heroes, they're just doing what everyone else was doing.
A separate fire in Parkerville destroyed 3 homes on Thursday. The threat is far from over, with hot conditions forecast over the next 2 days, and fire authorities again urging residents to make sure they have a bushfire plan in place. Keysbrook resident Sue Mead knew exactly what to do.
This is the set of sprinklers that I had on yesterday in case the fire changed.
Come on, girls. Come on, darlings.
The former volunteer firefighter, who has lived in the area all her life, also has a firefighting unit with a tank and pump ready to go.
I would stay and defend because I've got 4 pet sheep that are my life. If it's ridiculous to stay, I'll go, but I'll try and take my pet sheep with me.
Not everyone is as prepared as Sue Mead, but authorities say taking a few minutes to review or create a plan could save lives in what is predicted to be a dangerous bushfire season. Nick Perpich, ABC News.
Police have charged a man over a triple fatal crash in the state's northeast. The 24-year-old was driving a car that crashed into a tree on the Kamilaroi Highway south of Gunnedah on Wednesday morning. 3 passengers, a man and 2 women, all aged in their 20s, died at the scene. The driver suffered arm and chest injuries and was taken to hospital for mandatory testing. He's been charged with 3 counts of dangerous driving, causing death, and 1 count of negligent driving. It took a week, but finally the United Nations Security Council has agreed on a resolution on Gaza. The text was reworked, then watered down in intense negotiations aimed at winning support from the United States.
De resolución que figura en el documento.
13 votes in favour.
Abstenciones.
2 abstentions, but no vetoes. In the Security Council, that counts as a victory.
2 abstenciones.
After 5 days of bitter wrangling.
It took many days and many long nights of negotiating to get this right. But today, this council provided a glimmer of hope amongst a sea of unimaginable suffering.
The resolution demands aid be delivered at scale directly to the Palestinian people in Gaza, with the help of a UN-appointed coordinator. What it doesn't do is demand an immediate stop to the fighting, instead calling for the creation of conditions for a sustainable ceasefire, a compromise made to avoid a US veto, which the resolution's sponsor eventually accepted.
Often, in diplomacy, the challenge is meeting the moment in the world we live in, not in the world that we want. And we will never tire in pushing for a full humanitarian ceasefire.
A humanitarian ceasefire is the only way to begin to meet the desperate needs of people in Gaza and end their ongoing nightmare.
UN Security Council resolutions are technically legally binding, but in practice difficult to enforce. Israel has already described the UN move as disconnected from reality. Hamas says it's insufficient. On the ground, the offensive is intensifying.
Israeli forces continue the ground operation in Khan Yunis and at the same time preparing for the widening of the operation to additional areas in the Gaza Strip.
It's hard to see how, under those conditions, more aid will make it into Gaza, even if the one thing the world can agree on is how desperately it's needed. Barbara Miller, ABC News.
A vigil is about to start in Western Sydney for Palestinian victims of the war. These are live pictures from Paul Keating Park in Bankstown. Volunteers are laying out 20,000 candles to represent those who've lost their lives in Gaza. Organisers say they want the vigil to be a solemn act of remembrance and a shared moment of hope for an end to the violence. Czech police have released dramatic footage of officers storming the university in Prague, where an armed student killed 14 people before killing himself. It's the country's worst mass shooting, and authorities say no motive has been identified.
From the 4th floor balcony of Charles University, the 24-year-old gunman takes aim and fires. This Czech journalist witnessed the attack and attempted to distract the shooter mid-assault.
He was shooting towards the people, and that was the thing. I yelled at him to shoot in my direction so that the people could run somewhere safe.
Police arrived 4 minutes after the massacre began. Body camera footage shows special forces charging down hallways and searching classrooms that staff and students had barricaded themselves inside.
put us on the floor. They searched everyone, and then with our hands up, we were just taken outside the building. As I was going down the stairs, I saw lots of blood on the stairs.
The lone shooter was surrounded by police 20 minutes after the first shot was fired.
Police were waiting for the moment when he became more or less encircled because he was using the balcony to hide from us. He got cornered and was only left with one weapon.
Police say the gunman killed his father before telling a friend he planned to kill himself. Authorities also linked him to the murders of a man and his 2-month-old daughter last week.
I don't want to speak about the number of weapons, but he had more than one, and he was really ready to kill much more people.
The Czech president and prime minister were among hundreds paying tribute to those killed. A national day of mourning has been declared and security increased at schools and public buildings until at least the new year. Michelle Rimmer, ABC News.
Residents of flood-ravaged far north Queensland may have little to give this festive season, but their Christmas spirit is far from dampened. Victims are rallying together, preparing meals and wrapping presents for those in need. But some communities in the region remain isolated, with roads still cut.
Christmas cheer in the face of adversity. Flood-affected residents rallying together, lifting the spirits of those who've lost everything.
It's overwhelming. Helping people and being able to help back, receive help back is so good.
Just thought it would be maybe 50 or 100 gifts. It's something like 400. It's incredible.
I'm grateful that we could do this today.
A flood victim herself, Ria Holland, has organised hundreds of meals for others impacted in Cairns.
Such a great experience to be able to hand in hot meals to people, and as soon as they feel the warmth of the food, they start, crying, giving me a hug.
Some are still isolated, unable to leave their communities, with the Captain Cook Highway cut between Palm Cove and Port Douglas. The ABC spoke to Dave Donnelly, who's been trapped at Ellis Beach for 6 days.
We're feeling tired. I don't feel like it's Christmas, I can tell you that.
In Port Douglas, bottled water a welcome sight after pipes were damaged by flooding on Tuesday. The taps are expected to be turned on again tonight.
And we've had teams from all over the state here working with our crews as well to ensure that this is being fixed as quickly as possible. And I can guarantee you they've probably done about 3 weeks' worth of work in a couple of days to get this done.
On the western side of the Cape, floodwaters are peaking in Kowanyama. The state government has pledged an additional $100,000 in immediate financial assistance for North Queenslanders. It's welcome news ahead of Christmas, but the fallout from this disaster will be felt long into the new year. Toby Loftus, ABC News, Cairns.
A simple finger prick could revolutionise global screening of type 1 diabetes. Scientists at the Royal Melbourne Hospital say they're the first to successfully trial the at-home test. They believe it could lead to a cheap and reliable way to test children for the chronic disease.
A quick prick and a few drops of blood is changing the world of diabetes.
The biggest problem with preventing type 1 diabetes is identifying the kids who are at risk.
100 Victorian children and young adults already tested for diabetes took part in a study using the finger prick test at home and sending it back to the hospital to test for type 1 diabetes antibodies. Victoria Pett has had the disease for 18 years and her daughters took part in the study.
Autoimmune conditions are so hard to detect, especially early on. They don't usually show up until you're full-blown symptoms.
While antibodies for type 1 diabetes can appear in children as young as 1, symptoms of the disease usually appear in adolescence.
The earlier you diagnose type 1 diabetes, the more pancreas function you have. If you wait, the immune system destroys the pancreas and it does not recover.
It's hoped early diagnosis using the test, coupled with immunotherapy, may save people from a lifetime of injecting insulin.
It's the last thing I want my kids to have.
A formal clinical trial will start in January and run for 2 years, with the expectation the FDA will approve it so that it can roll out as a national screening test for children. Rachel Clayton, ABC News, Melbourne.
It's that time of the year again when Year 12 students receive their final grades and start planning their future. While those with top marks are celebrated, experts stress a person's ATAR isn't necessarily a measure of future success. Lydia McLennan has more.
The results of years of hard work culminating in one final score.
Okay guys, I'm just going to do it. I'm just going to open my 2023 ATAR.
On videos flooding social media, some graduates are celebrating their ATAR result. Others aren't as jubilant.
One of my friends got 96.05 and then the other friend got 99.15. I really am the dud of my friends.
Joining them on social media is Professor Braden Hill, a Deputy Vice-Chancellor at Edith Cowan University, who wants to let them know a bad ATAR isn't the end of the world.
But as someone who's been a teacher, academic, has multiple degrees, I got an ATAR of 55. But regardless of the ATAR that you get, there are multiple pathways to university, and there's not just one way.
But it's not all about getting into university.
And really underneath the floor of the car is all the batteries.
There are many industries that want students to know they're looking for people, and they don't need a degree.
You can pretty much start your job tomorrow. And also, you won't have that tens of thousands of dollars of potential debt that you may have if you do some other study.
Experts say there is still a bias towards university when it comes to career counselling in schools, with graduating students urged to keep in mind other options, like a traineeship or apprenticeship.
People have incredibly successful careers coming through apprenticeships or traineeships, and in fact, generally have a better head start in life, get to financial independence a lot quicker.
A message to keep in mind as graduates weigh up life outside the schoolyard. Lydia McLennan, ABC News.
Now to tonight's special report. There's been outrage in Taiwan this year, with allegations of sexual misconduct reaching into nearly every part of society. As the Me Too wave sweeps the island, some of those allegations have resulted in real action, with apologies made at the highest levels of Taiwanese politics. But one of the most prominent people to come forward has been hit with a defamation suit, and that has some worried it could limit the movement. East Asia correspondent Kathleen Calderwood filed this report from Taipei.
Tina Zhou shot to fame as part of Taiwanese pop band Hey Girl. Key to her success was this man, Chan Chien Zhou.
This issue has been on my mind for many years.
Spurred on by Taiwan's Me Too movement, Ms Zhou went public with allegations of sexual misconduct, saying Mr Chan took advantage of his position and sexually harassed her on a business trip to Hong Kong in 2012.
Many people are afraid to speak up, and I thought that maybe my experience could inspire those who lack the courage to speak up for themselves.
Mr Chan denies the allegations and sued Ms Zhou for defamation. Taiwan's Me Too movement began thanks to a hit political drama called Wavemakers. It inspired one woman to speak out about her experience of alleged sexual harassment while working for the ruling Democratic Progressive Party. The president issued an apology on behalf of the party, and several senior staffers resigned. Taipei councillor Hong Wan-jin, also a member of the DPP, supported several women from the city's parks office who'd been sexually harassed by a security guard over several years.
They cried because they had sought help for months from various places, but nobody could properly assist them.
The security guard was later dismissed after an investigation by the council.
After a months-long process, this week the Taipei Prosecutor's Office decided not to pursue criminal defamation charges against Tina Zhou. But the legal process takes a toll, and some fear that even the threat of such action could have a chilling effect on those considering if they should come forward.
If Taiwan's Me Too movement stops at my case,
than all the brave individuals, whether male or female, who came forward courageously before me. Everyone will have lost.
大家都跟我一起输掉了。
But activists remain hopeful.
I
think the Me Too movement lets each of these stories be seen, and it has a positive impact on Taiwan society as a whole, like a force moving forward.
A call for more people to find their voice. Kathleen Calderwood, ABC News, Taipei.
The Sydney Thunder have picked up their first victory of the Big Bash season, defeating the Melbourne Stars by 5 wickets in Albury. Both sides had been winless so far in their campaigns, as the Stars posted a total of 172 after a half-century to Bo Webster. The all-rounder took 4 crucial wickets in response, but it wasn't enough as the Thunder prevailed with 10 balls to spare. Last night, the Sydney Sixers maintained their winning start to the season, defeating the Adelaide Strikers by 1 run at the SCG. A half-century from Jordan Silk propelled the hosts to 7 for 155 before the Strikers pushed the match to the final ball.
Great finish. That was absolute chaos. Jamie hitting a big 6 there, and it just sort of came from nowhere in those last 2 overs. It really felt like we were a big.
Pakistan's bowling stocks have been dealt another blow, with spinner Noman Ali ruled out for the rest of the series against Australia. Ali complained of sudden abdominal pain yesterday and underwent surgery for appendicitis. He's expected to be discharged from hospital today. He joins fast bowler Khurram Shahzad on the sidelines, who's pulled out of the series due to a stress fracture in his rib. Their opponents spent the day enjoying the sunshine at the MCG while it lasts. Rain is expected for the second test, with the heaviest falls predicted before the match on Christmas Day. Wicketkeeper Alex Carey says Australia's preparation for the Boxing Day test won't be changed by the forecast.
When Paddy wins or the toss or loses it, we'll go out to work and try to win that first hour of play. I think that's all we can do is focus really closely on our preparation, make sure the kids around the group's got all their Christmas presents and the parents are happy and gets enough sleep, and we'll be right.
India is in a dominant position midway through the third day of the one-off test against Australia in Mumbai, holding a handy first innings lead. The hosts were bowled out early in the day before Australia dug deep to stay in the match.
After taking 3 quick wickets midway through day 2, Australia had hoped to rip through India and bat for a second time. But a 100-run 8th wicket partnership catapulted the home side into a dominant first innings position.
We toiled really hard, and I guess going into today we just need to be really consistent and I guess really boring with the lines and lengths that we're bowling. I think we were probably too wide or too full yesterday.
But after leaking early runs,
very well played,
the Aussies finally got a breakthrough.
Wicket finally for Annabel Sutherland.
Australia claiming the last 3 wickets inside an hour, but not before India passed 400 with a 187-run lead.
It's the short balls that have done the trick this morning.
After a disastrous start to the first innings, Beth Mooney and Phoebe Litchfield looked far more settled at the crease.
Oh, that's beautiful.
But the pitch started to play up and the wickets started to fall. A momentary lapse in concentration costing Mooney, while Litchfield was undone by a poor shot choice. Elise Perry and Talia McGrath picked up the baton after lunch.
That's punched power in that stroke.
As Australia slowly reduced India's advantage. Tom Wildey, ABC News.
The Western Sydney Wanderers have suffered a heartbreaking loss to Wellington in stoppage time. Both halves were tightly contested, but a 91st-minute goal put the Phoenix up 1-0. Wellington then scored a second goal in stoppage time to stay at the top of the A-League table. The Wanderers remain third on the ladder. In last night's match, the Newcastle Jets lost 3-1 to Adelaide United at Hindmarsh Stadium. The home side ended a 3-game losing streak to run out winners 3-1. Melbourne City have jumped into top spot on the A-League women's ladder after defeating the Victory 1-0. Meanwhile, the Central Coast Mariners put 3 goals past Canberra United to earn a crucial 3 points in the race for the finals. Earlier, the Newcastle Jets lost 2-0 to the Phoenix in Wellington. One of the oldest churches in Sydney is looking forward to receiving its dream Christmas present, a new pipe organ. But St James's in the CBD will have to wait a little longer for the instrument to arrive after a factory fire delayed its construction. The good news is the manufacturer has bounced back and the organ's arrival is just around the corner.
Thoughts of the old St James organ, faithful servant of 50 years, trigger a wry smile among those familiar with its quirks.
The last organ was a little bit of a mongrel and lasted far longer than it should have.
There are some memories of some extremely solemn moments in a church proceeding and the organ just making its own little honking sound.
The historic Anglican church searched far and wide for a more reliable replacement and landed in Lake City, Iowa. Dobson pipe organ builders had started work on the new St James organ in 2021 when disaster struck. Fire engulfed the US business while its owner was working interstate.
By the end of the day, it was obvious that the shop would be a complete loss.
Did you think it was going to be possible to get the project back on track?
We had no idea what would happen.
Local businesses offered Dobson space. Tools were replaced through fundraising and work on the St James organ started up again.
We were really humbled and gratified by all the support.
It's due to arrive in January, ahead of the bicentenary of the church's consecration. Once the new organ's pipes are in place, the job of completing this vast instrument won't be over. Each pipe will have to be individually tuned to ensure the sound is just right. Organist David Drury hopes it will inspire people to study the instrument overseas.
Some of the instruments, of course, were built at the time of, you know, the famous composers like Bach and people like that, and you play these instruments and then you come back here with all of that knowledge.
I think there's some real musical magic to be made.
It's been a phenomenal phoenix out of the ashes, really.
And a chance to look to the next 200 years. Carl Herr, ABC News, Sydney.
And now let's take a look at the weather. A partly cloudy day across Sydney today. It reached a top of 26 in the city, 29 in Penrith. Overnight lows were above average across the southern inland and far west, while maximums were below average in the east and along the ranges and slopes. On today's satellite, a trough over the Tasman Sea is linked to two low-pressure systems bringing storms and heavy rain. On tomorrow's chart, an inland trough over far west New South Wales is expected to deepen into a low-pressure system over the southwest. Around the country tomorrow, showers in Melbourne, Brisbane and Hobart, partly cloudy in Adelaide, sunny in Perth. For the northeast, a very high chance of showers with a possibility of severe thunderstorms with damaging winds and large hail. A chance of showers and thunderstorms also in the southeast. And to the west, mostly sunny with a slight chance of a shower. Off the coast, winds 20 to 30 knots and seas up to 2 metres. In Sydney tomorrow, very high chance of showers and a possible storm, a top of 25 in the city and Penrith. The sun will rise at 5:41 a.m. And further ahead, a shower or two and a possible storm Christmas Day. It will hit 27 in the city, then a reduced chance of storms on Boxing Day. Dry conditions on Wednesday. It will hit a top of 29 in the city, 31 in the west. Then sunny on Thursday, 29 in the city, 34 in the west. And then Friday, it will hit a top of 30, then 35 in the west. And Saturday will also be showery, a top of 28 and 31 in the west. And that's all from ABC News. Enjoy the rest of your evening.